Well, hey, what's up? Welcome to the SMA Marketing Minute. As you guys know, I'm Ryan, and today we're doing something a little bit special, a little bit different, and I'm actually going to be interviewing a good friend of mine, Jo from Lollipop Local. She's all the way from across the pond, and she's going to share a little bit about her agency and how they've been targeting engineering firms and technical companies and how inbound has really helped that industry not just grow their reach, but also grow their influence online. Improve sales, and really just create a whole new way of doing business for them. So
I'm going to hit the brakes, he'll fly right by.
60% of the time, it works every time.
I was hanging.
Hey, 10 points for our fearless leader.
That's not an option. You got to keep on keeping on. Life's a garden, dig it, you make it work for you. You never give up, man. That's my philosophy.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Welcome to the SMA Marketing Minute.
thanks so much for joining us, Jo.
You're welcome.
Can you tell us just a little bit about your agency, just the history, how you all got started, and where you kind of decided to focus on the technical audiences?
Sure. Okay. Well, I think we are a bit different from a lot of the agencies because I actually really was a lollipop lady when I started doing this. And I don't know if you guys know what one of those is, but it's a school crossing patrol guard. And the little kind of stick that they hold up over here, obviously, is called a lollipop because it looks like a lollipop. So when I started my business, because I was doing that at the time, it seemed like a really good name to me, particularly as it kind of fitted in with direct traffic and high visibility online marketing and all those kind of punny what would you call it, like catchphrases. So that I was a lollipop lady back in 2010. I was seeing business owners across the street, and they would stop and have a chat with me, and they would tell me about how their businesses were going and how they were frightened of their web designer and the local directory salespeople. And because I was already active on the internet doing some affiliate marketing, it seemed like a natural progression to actually try to help these less techie business owners. And that's how Lollipop was born. So that was 7 years ago, and there are now 4 of us, 3 of us based in the office and 1 remotely. I can't think of anything else. Any other questions you want to ask on that, or is it?
No, that's awesome. That's a really cool way to get started. I love how you kind of tied what was going on in your life and made it a little bit personal when you were starting your business. I think that's really cool. I always wonder how people kind of come up with their names. You know, I don't really have such a catchy name. It's just my last name. But, there's all those cool names. I'm like, where do these people come up with them?
Sorry.
No, you're fine. What kind of helped you guys, or what made you kind of decide to focus on technical audiences?
Well, again, this is kind of a bit unusual, is that John and I both did karate. And so the first the first big companies who came to us were actually people who we'd rolled around on the mat with, who already knew and liked and trusted us. So it was kind of purely by accident, because one of those was an engineer and the other one was in the security systems industry. So those were our 2 niches that we started with, and the ones that we've had the most success with.
I think that's really cool that it just kind of built on relationship. I think so many times when we're trying to target a niche, like we overthink it, maybe. I know I did that same thing, just overthinking, is this a good one? Is this a good one? But really, you just let it kind of grow out of a natural relationship. And I think that's a really cool thing to do. And I think it's been really productive for you because it's been built and founded in relationship.
Definitely. And the trust was already there. But then having had success in those industries, we were then able to provide case studies and talk to people that we didn't know in that way. And it helped us then help them to have the confidence that we could actually do what we said we could do.
Yeah, that's great. And what have you seen kind of in the technical world? Because I know a lot of times when we talk about inbound, you've got the SaaS companies who are a little bit more tech savvy, or people kind of targeting these the medical industry, some of those kind of industries that kind of have a little bit more of a digital marketing presence. But why is it important for technical companies to also embrace inbound? What are the things that you've seen as far as how they've done marketing and how it's really helped transition them into inbound?
Sure. I mean, I think the thing we notice most is that the people we work with are really not as technically savvy as the people who are starting up SaaS companies. And so they quite like the fact that I am a lollipop lady and I can speak in their language. And I've tried very hard to find analogies that help them to understand what's going on. So that was kind of our starting point with it, that we didn't really want to go after SaaS companies because they were much more technically aware. So that there's a huge number of suppliers for them where there weren't so many suppliers for this particular type of audience.
Awesome. Can you share maybe a success story of kind of how you can leave out customer names, of course, if you need to, but just kind of a success story of how you kind of helped one of these less technical companies who had a technical audience, but maybe they just weren't so like web design savvy, and how'd you build like a campaign that worked and really turned into a really good ROI for them?
Sure. I think my favourite one is we have an engineering company that we work with, and they were desperate to get in with more Formula One design engineers. But of course, the design engineers, it's a bit like hunting season for them. They feel like quarry because everybody wants to get and talk to them, and they very rarely hand out their business cards or details. However, that doesn't mean to say that they're not actually looking themselves on the internet. And this was a bit of a revelation for our customer because he thought that he was always going to have to be doing the chasing. So what we did was we'd worked with them to find some content that would actually appeal to these Formula One engineers. And we put that up on the website, and we started to get a lot of interest. And this particular customer had a horrible experience with a previous web designer where they'd spent a fortune on a site. And when they came to see us, what they didn't realise was that the whole site was actually not displaying to anybody who was looking at it. So it was on a WordPress site, and you could only see the full site if you were logged in. So because they were always logged in, they thought their site was showing. But when we actually showed them what we could see, they'd paid all this money and you could only see like the top bar, the name of the website, and you couldn't see any of the content that was on it. So we had to fix all that before we could get started with them. And obviously they were very distrustful of technical people or web designers anyway. So it took a while to build that trust. But then once we started getting this content onto the website and they could see it being displayed and they could see people actually coming to the site to look at it, signing up to download the different offers that we put up, that really started to get them quite excited. The customer went to a trade show, which was where he got most of his business from. And on the first day of this particular trade show, the first person through the door was a guy who walked down the aisle and went straight to their stand. And he said, I've been looking at your website and I really like what I see. I'm a Formula One design engineer and I was going to come and see you, but you're quite a long way away from me. When I saw on the website you were going to be at this event, which is just around the corner, I thought this was the ideal opportunity. So I'm here. So they had a chat, and the guy went away feeling, he seemed very happy to have made their acquaintance, and it seemed like a really good relationship was going to start, but he still didn't hand over his business card. So about 3 weeks later, I said to Andrew, what's happening with the Formula One guy? And he said, I've got his number, but I keep ringing him, but I can't get past the gatekeeper. So I said to him, well, so what are you going to do? And he said, well, I'm just going to keep trying. And I said, well, have you thought of LinkedIn? And he hadn't. So we were able to go and find this chap on LinkedIn. We issued a connection request. The guy accepted. And within a couple of days, drawings had been exchanged. Within a few days after that, they were on the approved suppliers list. And now they've got orders going between them. So it's kind of a bit of a convoluted story, but you can see how all the elements of inbound have been brought in there to actually make that relationship happen and get things started. Shall I pause for breath now?
No, I think I love hearing that, because I think what you did really well there is kind of walk the client through the process of not just getting a lead, but, what do you do after you've kind of made that initial contact? Yeah. And then you've also done a really cool thing with kind of merging some traditional marketing efforts in with inbound. And could you maybe elaborate on that? Have you done a lot of that where you're kind of using trade shows and some of these maybe traditional person-to-person events, and then also using and how inbound's kind of supported that? I mean, I think this is a great example. And have you done that with other clients as well?
Not with other clients. With this one, what we're doing with the next trade show is we're trying to persuade him to actually get some appointments actually made, so that he actually meets up with people actually at the event. He's because he's quite he's very reserved about using technical stuff, so it takes quite a lot of persuading, but he is starting to see the value of it, and now we're trying to make sure that he sees the right people at the trade shows. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, that definitely does make sense. It's all about, using your time wisely.
Yeah.
And, I think that's a really cool story of just, the different progresses, and showing that it's not always so systematic. I think a lot of times when we talk about inbound, it's like, well, you've got to do X amount of blog posts and X amount of landing pages and you get X amount of leads. But sometimes, you've got to go to that trade show, you've got to go digging on LinkedIn and making that other connection, using some of the social channels or using some of the other channels online to really establish yourself and then, position yourself to make that ask. I think that's really, really cool.
There was a quote that I can't remember who made it, but I saw it on the internet recently, and they were talking about lead nurturing, and they said when the pain is acute, the prospect turns to someone they know, like, and trust rather than starting the search from scratch. And what I like about inbound is that it encapsulates all the old school networking, but allows you to replicate it on a much grander scale, even a global scale.
I like that word, networking. That's one of my words for this year that I'm kind of focusing on for myself. What are maybe some networking tips you can give, maybe engineering firms that are looking to get out and start some marketing on their own, or maybe other agencies that are, kind of trying to figure out the networking piece as well? What are some things that you've seen that have helped you?
I mean, I think with networking, it's because the networks, the engineers over here in the UK, it's actually really hard to persuade them to leave their caves. They rely on the traditional, they rely on trade shows, they rely on their existing customers, the ways that they've always done things. And it's trying to persuade them to actually leave the security of the cave and come out to some of these other events. And they like to come to ones that are specific to their industry, because obviously if you turn up to the local Chamber of Commerce event, you may not see it. There may not be Formula One design engineers there. So it's trying to go to the places where your guys are going to be, so that you can get some cards exchanged. You can start having some conversations, and then you can take it back to LinkedIn, or you can refer them to somewhere on their on your website where they can download something, and it will start that process. And I think people forget the power of that face-to-face interaction. And it's just another one of the touches that just comes into inbound. It's not just about online; it's about making those relationships in person as well.
I think that's so good, and that's so true. I'm noticing, while we're generating leads and we're doing a pretty decent job, I feel like, of nurturing them, there's nothing that really substitutes for that person-to-person interaction.
Yeah, so but it's like this: you don't actually physically have to be in the same room with them.
Right.
It's making the use of the internet and these wonderful tools that we've got that allow this to happen.
I think that's so true. Well, that's awesome. Thanks so much, Joe, for just sharing a little bit about your story. I think that was really insightful and really helpful, and honestly, a really practical way of just looking at a real example of how inbound work in real life, and how we kind of merge traditional marketing and some of the traditional aspects of networking, but then also using the new tools in inbound to really build out that funnel from top all the way to the bottom. So thanks so much for spending some time with us. We appreciate it. And if anybody wants to check out their site and read their blog and what they're doing, we're going to go ahead and put a link here at the bottom of this post so you can go check them out and network and get to know them a little bit more. So thanks so much. I really do appreciate you taking the time.
It's brilliant. Thank you, Ryan.
Hey, thanks so much for checking out this video. It really means a lot. If you like what you saw, please hit the subscribe button below. That way, every time I post a new video, you'll be one of the first people to know. You can also check us out on our website, where I write blogs every single week, or follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thanks for connecting with us, and happy marketing.